So let's try. I want to try to hit on all these series just a little bit. It may be tough. We'll see. But let's start with 1-8 in the East. We already talked about the Hawks. They'll play the Heat. Now the Hawks, I mentioned this earlier, only 10 games difference between these two teams, and that just shows the parity in the East this year, top to bottom. You could really flip-flop a lot. Trae Young, 32 of 38 in that second half. The big one in that play-in game, though, is Clint Capella went down with an injury. We don't know if he'll be available. I think that even with him, I don't think the Hawks have a chance. Overall, disappointing year. But without him, that pick-and-roll game will be hurt greatly. So I have the Heat in this one. I don't think it's particularly close, and I just think they're rolling right now. 1 seed in the East. They've been in the moments, too. That's one thing the Hawks could have had on a potential younger team, but they don't have it on the Heat, who were in the finals 2 years ago. So I think the Hawks wrap this one up nicely. I'll give the Hawks a game, so I'll take the Heat in 5.
I had the same idea. And you know what I really like about this Heat team is they're a combination of veterans and young talent. With a guy like Tyler Hero, they still got Duncan Robinson. And then you go out in the offseason and sign Kyle Lowry. You still got Butler. Bam Adebayo is young. Victor Oladipo. This roster is just loaded. I think they're just going to outclass the Hawks. They have too many guys that they can look to in those final moments in a game where it's, okay, it's Victor's turn. Okay, it's Jimmy's turn. Okay, it's Tyler's turn. With the Hawks, you're really relying on Trae Young every single time to put up 40-point games. And if he has an off night or a couple off nights, there's no chance that I say they win the series. I agree with you, Ryan. I'm going to give them a game. I think Trae Young explodes one of these games. Maybe goes off for 50. Who knows? That would be electric. But I'll say Heat in 5.
I'm gonna be a little nicer to the Hawks. I'm gonna give them 2 games. I'm
so much nicer.
So much nicer. I mean, come on now. But I'm going Heat in 6. I think you said it best, Dan. You just started rattling off all the names that Miami's got, and that's kind of been the story for them in the last few seasons. Their depth has really been able to carry them, and not just to be a playoff team, but to be a perennial 1 or 2 seed every single year. In my eyes, that's what brought them to the finals in the bubble. Their depth just outshined everybody in the Eastern Conference. I do believe that Trae Young has been in these moments way, way too much to not give the Hawks at least 2 games. The only way I can really see them stopping him is if he goes down with an injury, but I think what you said too, Ryan, Clint Capella going down, that's really going to hurt the game that Trae Young plays. Can pop right off that screen, hit a 3, hit a jumper from anywhere, but I'll go Heat in 6.
And now let's shift to a series that I think might be more back and forth. It's the Celtics versus the Nets. The Nets getting that 7 seed. You give the Celtics credit. They didn't tank at the end of the year. They could have avoided this matchup, played in Toronto, but they played their starters. They won to secure the 2 seed in I believe it was a 3-way tie for that 2 seed, and they ended the year as hot as you can end it, 26-6 in that stretch, first in defensive and offensive efficiency. So there's a lot to like there, but then at the same time, you've Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving knocking on your door, and we already talked about how good the Nets looked in that play-in game. So I think it's going to be back and forth. I think it's going to be chaos with Kyrie's return to the Garden. Ben Simmons possibly is going to get ramped up for halfway through the series. I think that can only help. So I'll go Nets in 6. I think it'll be back and forth, 2-2, and then Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. They're the 2 best players in this series, and they're going to show up.
I think this is going to be the best series, guys. I really do. Celtics-Nets. This is going to be the test of the East. I really do see whoever wins this series might come out of the East. But I got to give it to my boy Jack Roche here at WFUV, our very own Celtics in 7. Let's go.
Ryan, great minds think alike. I'm thinking the same way. It's experience for me when it comes to the Nets. Kevin Durant has been there, won a couple championships. Kyrie Irving, been there, won a championship in Cleveland. This team is just so scary. On offense, they can almost do no wrong. It depends who has the ball in their hand. It's not who has the ball in their hand, it's who's going to make the last shot, because I think anyone on this roster, it's so stacked. But I'm going to go with the experience in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and I'm going to say Nets in 6 as well.
So moving along here, we have the Bulls versus the Bucks. These two teams, interesting when you take it apart, because the Bucks, everyone expected to be here. The Bulls, not so much. They started the year on fire, but they ended just 7-15. and most importantly to me, 2-21 versus the top 4 seeds in the East. That is really all I need to look at with Lonzo Ball and Patrick Williams hurt, and it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it's the Bucks. Obviously, coming off the championship, the defense hasn't been as great this year, so long-term in the playoffs, I have some concerns for them. But early on in this series, I'm taking the best player. I'm taking the better team. This one I don't particularly think will be close. I do have the Bucks sweeping them. Bulls, great story, but they just teetered off too much at the end of the year for me to like them. So I'll have the Bucks advancing very easily.
Yeah, what I have written down is Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's it. Just Giannis Antetokounmpo. Bucks and 4, Bucks sweep, and we're pretty on it right now.
You guys pretty much said everything that I had planned right there. But I'm just being a nice guy today, guys. I'm going to give the Bulls one game. I'm going to give them one game. DeRozan, the Bulls, they were a great story in the beginning. They were a great story, and you said it right, and they kind of faltered towards the end. And who do they have that's going to stop Giannis? No one. Bucks in 5.
Yeah, I mean, that one I think is easy. I know somebody out there who is so strong on the Bulls. Shout out Alex Wolves. He's not here to defend himself, though, so he's not going to get a chance to, and he won't when this series is wrapped up in maybe 5, I think 4. Last series in the East here, we have the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Toronto Raptors. This one, I think, is very back and forth. You look at it on paper, there's no reason the Sixers shouldn't win this one easily with their experience. Maybe the best duo in the East, if not the second best in Embiid and Harden, but something about the way they've played down the stretch, particularly James Harden, he's struggled. They have struggled. It's so Joel Embiid, dependent in the 4 games. When he wasn't on the court, the Raptors outscored the Sixers 61-36. I don't know how much that factors into the playoffs, but this one is the toughest for me. I'm going to go Philly in 7. I could lean Raptors, but I'm going to. I believe too much in Joel Embiid. Maybe the MVP this year. Worst case scenario, top 3 in MVP. And James Harden early has success in the playoffs. It's typically late where he falters, so I'm comfortable going Philly here, but I think Toronto pushes him to the wire.
I am not particularly high on the Raptors. Losing a guy like Kyle Lowry, having that inexperience. I mean, they still have Pascal and they still have Fred VanVleet.
But that's really it, though.
That's really it, if we're being honest. And if we're looking comparatively, I'll take James Harden over Fred VanVleet, and I will 100% take Joel Embiid over Pascal Siakam. I'm a little different here. I think the Sixers should win this one easily. I'm going to be a little nice like Will Tallant. I'm going to say Sixers in 6, but I don't think those 4 games that the Sixers win are particularly close.
I think the Raptors don't get enough credit for how good they are. Yes, they have VanVleet and Siakam. They don't match up to Harden and Embiid whatsoever. But this team is gritty. There's just something about them. Every time they play the Knicks, and now that's the Knicks, they just always come back, and they always have this fight. And honestly, I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs at all this year. And now they're the 5 seed. But Joel Embiid and James Harden they've clicked. They've kind of slowed down a little bit since the trade. But in the beginning, it was one shot after another. It was on fire, and that could pick back up again. But nevertheless, they were still very good, no matter if they had any struggles on the Sixers together at all. But I'm going to go the same route as you, Danny. I'm going to go Sixers in 6.
So in the East, we are very in agreement. Besides, Will has the Celtics. So,
yes.
We'll see out West now as we shift how that will change. The first series is the Phoenix Suns versus the Pelicans. We talked about the Pelicans stealing a playoff spot from the Clippers, but there's no tougher task than the Phoenix Suns. 64-18 this year, the only team in the NBA to finish top 5 in offensive, defensive, and net rating. So just stacked top to bottom. Coming off the finals appearance last year, there's no reason they shouldn't wrap this up in 4, honestly. You could see maybe the Pelicans carry that momentum and steal an early game of the series, but I can't. It's boring. I'm going to do it. The Suns are going to sweep the Pelicans.
Not a whole lot to add here. The Suns only team to win 60-plus games this year, and they win 64. 8 games more than the next closest team in the Grizzlies. The Suns they're so good. They're good top to bottom. They play very well together. Devin Booker, almost 27 points per game this year. And then you got the point god, as LeBron likes to call him, Chris Paul, who's been in the playoffs before, has some experience. I think the Suns just sweep them. They're just outclassed. They almost won double the amount of games that the Pelicans won this year.
Chris Paul, really good guy to bring up for this discussion. They were without Chris Paul, and they still dominated the league. The Suns just dominated the Western Conference. Love the Pelicans story. We're talking about it before. They kind of just snuck their way in there, and then they ended up making the 8th seed. But Suns in 4. It's just not close.
It's not even close. And the second series is fascinating. 2 small market clubs in the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies. The Timberwolves, just an awesome story to get here, winning that game. And the Grizzlies are very fascinating because they're 20-4 without Ja Morant. He will be playing, but the question is, how healthy will he be? And how does that affect, obviously, how they played without him was fantastic. This is going to be my shocker of the first round. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to give him everything they have. Patrick Beverley's played in 59 career playoff games, nearly a full season. That experience, nobody on the Grizzlies has that. A very young upstart team. I know they won their playing game last year, ended up getting into that first round, but I'm going to go with the Timberwolves. I look at just the top guys. I trust Anthony Edwards in a big spot. Karl Anthony Towns struggled. They were still able to find a way. I think now D'Angelo Russell's had experience in the playoffs. Karl Anthony Towns does have a series under his belt. They're hot. They're about to be owned by A-Rod. I love that. I think there's a lot about them trending in the right direction. So I'm going to go the Timberwolves in a shocker here. They're going to be the Grizzlies in 6 games.
You know, I have a similar thought with the Grizzlies. However, I don't think it comes in this round.
Okay.
I think that this is going to be a team that was really, really good in the regular season and kind of loses it in the postseason. I think they lose second round, but I'm going to go with the Grizzlies in 5 in this one. They're a really, really good team, and they're really, really young, and I think if they can keep this core together, they're a team that's going to compete for an NBA championship in the coming years. However, I don't think that's going to be this year, but I do think that they should be able to put down the Timberwolves, and I'm going to go in 5 games.
I like your thought process there, Ryan. I really do, because this Timberwolves team, it's another team that doesn't get enough credit for how good they really are. But I'm going to have to stick with the Grizzlies. I don't think they were just a regular season team. I'm going to go the same route that Danny went. I love Ja Morant. I think this team is very put together. They play basketball very well together. There's just something about them. They just gel. I have a very similar take, Dan. They're not a championship team this year. Definitely not a championship team this year. They will run into some trouble as the 2 seed in later round. I don't see them going very far after this first one, but I got the Grizzlies in 6.
So that's my first pick against the grain here. Well, obviously, one of the 2 parties here will be right. That's the beauty of this. One of us will be wrong. Now let's go. We have 2 more series. The Dallas Mavericks and the Utah Jazz. The Mavericks, both these teams trending in opposite directions in a sense. Mavericks end the year 20-7 after trading Porzingis. They look very strong right now. The Jazz have lost 7 of 11. There's been talks all over the place that Donovan Mitchell wants out, doesn't. Not really sure the story there. I'm going to go, and the one question is Luka Doncic's calf, because it's been barking. It is a question. I think if he's healthy, they have the best player in the series. They're playing the best right now. I look at a Dorian Finney-Smith who gets no attention. He's been giving you 14 a game since February, and he might be the best defender, in this series outside of Gobert. So I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks in this one. I'll go 7. I think this is back and forth. You'll have Donovan Mitchell and Luka Doncic both giving you 40-point games, but I'm going to go Luka and the Mavericks at the end of the day, taking this series versus Utah Jazz.
Yep. This is probably the toughest series in the Western Conference, in my opinion. It's not going to be as big as Brooklyn and Boston, but it has that same uncertainty, you could say. It could really go either way. Brought up a very good point, Ryan, and Luka really don't know the story there. So that's going to be it's going to be very telling for the Mavericks. If he's in, then the Mavericks definitely have a shot. But I like the Jazz. I like what they bring to the table, and I think it's going to go 7 as well. I'm just going with the Jazz.
Me and Will are starting to get on the same wavelength in the West. I think it's already been reported that Luka is at least out for Game 1. So if the Jazz tonight are able, or tomorrow, whenever they play, are able to dismantle, I think they're actually playing currently right now. That game just started. If the Jazz are able to dismantle them in game one. I see no problem with the Jazz moving on in the series. You know, they're already starting to get some experience in those playoffs. This is Donovan Mitchell's third playoff. Rudy Gobert has been here before. I think this is a team that should be able to handle the Mavericks, and I got the Jazz winning in 6.
Yeah, to me, there's just some concern about a team just running it back year after year. At some point, I think it meets its rear end, but we'll see if it's here. And Donovan Mitchell is a superstar, so I have no questions with it. I think Luka Doncic, yeah, it's going to come down to the health. Missing game one, unfortunate. As long as he is back, though, for the bulk of the series, I think the Mavericks should be fine. And another guy who might not play game one, I believe he's upgraded to probable, something like that, is Steph Curry. And the Warriors do, the Denver Nuggets. And this is one, Draymond, Steph, and Clay, by the way, only played 11 minutes combined this year. All of them dealt with separate injuries at different times, which is shocking. But we talk a lot about experience in the playoffs, and there's experience, and then there's the Warriors' experience. It's a cut above every other team when they've been there for 3 championships, the core. So I don't care if they've played 11 minutes this year. I don't play if they played 0. It doesn't matter to me because the last 5 years, 10 years, whatever, they've been running it. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is looking to be back-to-back MVP. Great story, dominant from him. But then I just look at, outside of these top 3 guys, a Jordan Poole, who gives the Warriors 24 a game from, after the new year on. It's the depth the Warriors have that I think actually pushes them over the top in a 7-game series where you're going blow for blow. So I'll go Warriors in 6 here. I'm confident that with all that experience, they're able to take care of the Joker.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you in this one. But for me, the thing is if Steph Curry plays and how well he plays coming off an injury, hasn't played in at least a month.
11 games, yeah.
So it really all depends on Steph. If Steph plays, I got the Warriors in 6. If Steph doesn't play, I'm going to go Nuggets in 7.
That's very good, Dan. I think Steph Curry is going to be the X factor in this series, but I'm gonna stick with you, Ryan, and I'm not gonna be the nice guy this time. I'm going Warriors in 5. You brought it up. The chemistry is just there. It's not like how it was a few years ago where it was like, okay, the Warriors are gonna just wipe through everybody, but they have that experience, as you said, Ryan. They have that dynasty experience, and they're not gonna lose that. It's the same core minus KD. But keep in mind, they still won without KD. So I got to go with the Warriors. I may even go as bold as saying they may come out of the West. But we'll see. I think Warriors-Suns would be a really fun series wherever it may be. But give me the Warriors in 5 of the Nuggets.
So just to recap, Danny, you had if Steph Curry doesn't play?
Steph Curry plays in this series, I think the Warriors win in 6. If he does not play, I think Nuggets go in 7.
So if he misses the first 2 games, you still have the Warriors coming out on top?
If he misses at least 2 games, yeah.
Okay. He's listed as probable.
He's listed as probable.
For today.
I think Steph Curry's the biggest X factor because he's the leader. He's the heart and soul of that team. If he's out 2 games, I say maybe Warriors in 7. I think if he plays at all this series, the Warriors have a good chance. If he's out for more than 3 games, I think the Nuggets can control the series, especially with who looks like to be the MVP this year and who won it last year, Nikola Jokic.
So we'll see how it shapes up. I expect him to play at some point, so I'm going to be confident in the Warriors pick, but I do think that will wrap up our NBA talk.